It's a real pleasure to be here. My name is Jayne Chan. I head up the Start Me Up Hong Kong program at Invest Hong Kong. And, today I've got a fantastic group of panelists, sitting here, all really passionate and incredibly experienced in building the ecosystem. And each one of them are involved in their own respective way, and the companies are involved to actually try and make a difference to this fintech environment. We're hearing about ecosystems, and in fintech that's especially important, I think. I'm just going to ask each one of the ladies to give a little bit of background about what they're doing, what their company is doing, and then we'll take it from there. Maaike?
Yeah, thank you, Jayne. So I work for CBA here in Hong Kong, and actually today is the first anniversary of our innovation lab here in Hong Kong. It's actually been a really exciting journey for us here with our innovation lab. To put it a little bit in perspective, in 2008, we were at the bottom of customer satisfaction in Australia. So there's 5 banks in Australia, and we were number 5. If you listen to the Citibank presentation earlier, they mentioned that they're introducing design thinking into their organization. But because we were last in customer satisfaction, CBA decided, not surprisingly, but to put the customer first. And that resulted in actually moving away from a product push into a customer experience design session. So at the moment, we have, out of our 52,000 people, probably 25% is trained in design thinking, and it is really an integral part of the way we operate, but it has been already like that for the last 9 years. What we also did was start innovation from the inside out, and to make it everybody's problem. And that also meant that we then needed a space to kind of get all these innovations together. So that's when in Sydney, about 3 years ago, we set up an innovation lab. It is a place where people come together to inspire, connect, and co-create. It is a space which we use for our staff to kind of understand the latest technology and understand what is going on in the tech space, where we train them in design thinking. But actually, more importantly, it's a place where we come together with our customers. And to give you an idea, here in Hong Kong, we don't do any retail or private banking. We purely do institutional banking. So it's been a really interesting journey to see how we engage with our corporate customers in the innovation space. And what we found is that obviously change is new to everyone. And not that it's new, but it's at the speed at which change is happening at the moment, that it's just really important for people to have an environment where they can share their own experience with innovation and change. And we found that the lab has been a great place where we can share our 9-year journey together with our customers and look at solutions that we can do together. Now, we also realize very much that we don't have all the ideas, and actually we're very strong on diversity and inclusion, so we love to work with outside partners. We don't run our own accelerator, or we don't run our own incubator program. We also don't invest in startups, but we very much engage with all the programs out there, and we love to use the lab as a place where actually these startups come into our organizations.
I've seen, quite a few of the startups, actually, fintech side, if you're looking to potentially understand a little bit about your solutions and how it applies to, the institutional side. Please get in touch with Maaike. I'm putting you on the spot here, aren't I?
No, that's fine. But I just want to mention that, most of you probably read the book The Circle, and one of the key slogans from The Circle is obviously sharing is caring. But really our motto for the lab is also sharing is caring. So we work a lot with external stakeholders, be it with the government, with the regulators, to try and share our experience. So we recognize that everybody is on their own journey. Yeah, you look at Citibank's journey, that's their journey. DBS, that's their journey. We are on our journey, and we're more than willing to share. And we very much welcome everybody that has amazing ideas or to share their own journey to connect with us through the lab.
Okay, and let's learn about the journey at Visa side. Caroline.
Thank you. So if I talk specifically about Hong Kong, the last year we've really started to try and get involved in a lot of the programs, really for our own benefit, to really understand what role we can play. And I'm sure most of you have a viewer, or it's always interesting to ask the crowd, what does Visa do? Because you never really know what kind of answer you're going to get. But we are fundamentally a network business, so we connect tens of thousands of financial institutions to millions of merchants globally. So we kind of connect the dots already today. But our business has actually historically operated fundamentally on our financial institutions, our banks. And over the last couple of years as a company, we've gone through quite a renaissance in the way that we work with other parties. So not just traditionally our financial institutions, but how we interact with other parties like startups, technology companies. And to do that, that's really required us to change the way that our technology is first orchestrated. So you can now interact with Visa through our Visa Developer Centre, sit in a sandbox and develop capabilities using our APIs. That capability wasn't there 12 months ago, and that's obviously a global initiative, not specific to Hong Kong. So with the rollout of Visa Developer, one of the key mandates for us in Hong Kong is to really try and establish a relationship with startups. And frankly speaking, we're actually willing and open to try anything. So as Renu knows, we've just signed on as a supporting partner of SuperCharger. Last year we were a part of the Google I Empowering Young Entrepreneurs program. And I guess for us, it's actually, it works in two ways. Obviously, there's benefit that goes with, helping the ecosystem, but it's also helping us transform our internal culture so that our team can learn a lot more about how these startups think and how that then translates to how we run our business.
Cade, you've got a lot to live up to after Neil's introduction. Please give us your background.
Yes, hi everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to see actually some of my ex-colleagues here as well as current colleagues. So good afternoon. I've been with DBS for about 5 years, and I was kind of one of the first couple of people that were trying to figure out innovation within the bank. And everyone now, please look at Neil. Neil, you get an A+ for your review. So I've worked fairly well with Neil in the last couple of years, in fact, really well. So we're happy with where we've gotten to. We launched a new innovation facility last year in November, where we plan to really, hit hard on a lot of the programs that we're running and to think about regionalization of some of our programs. So this year for us, as a team, we are looking at really driving ambition across the bank, because I think we've done fairly well in terms of culture and collaboration, but this year is really a year of ambition, where we want to drive DBS towards working as one of the best fintechs in the world, and to be a 22,000 people startup.
Fantastic. I mean, you guys already have an incredible reputation, actually, on the innovation side. So from banks and large financial institutions, we have an ex-banker here, Renu.
Yep, we're actually a startup ourselves. So we started off at SuperCharger last year, and this year we've had our second program. We started SuperCharger because we felt that as you very well know, the Hong Kong ecosystem is actually a relatively young fintech ecosystem. We didn't have a homegrown accelerator that was based here the whole time. And actually looking at what this ecosystem needed. And so we developed SuperCharger, which was slightly different in that it looks at early stage companies and scale-ups, because given the very, Hong Kong has always been a great connector. It's a place where people come to either scale into Asia or Asian companies looking to scale out. So we created a program which would really target both the early stage companies out here and the late stage companies. And learning from the experience that we had with our first program, it was fantastic to see we had Chinese companies that wanted to scale outside of China. And you would say, well, with a 1.2 billion market in Hong Kong, why would you want to do that? There's enormous opportunity. But they felt that they had a fintech, a model, a company that actually could expand into India, could expand into Indonesia. So the idea was to really leverage what this system needed. And so after the success of the first program, we've just launched again our second program, and we have a great group of companies from within the region and globally. And I think the other thing what we found is how much interest there is globally, not just regionally, from companies looking to come in here, not only from a startups perspectives and the larger companies, but also from mentors, people from all over the world wanting to learn about what's going out here. And I think that develops and actually enhances the entire system here.
Yeah, I think Asia is definitely, on the plans of a lot of different fintechs who, looking at some of the other markets that maybe not grown as robustly. Which actually brings me to a very good point. I mean, we've seen from no incubators apart from the government-funded ones at Cyberport and Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, a few years ago, to now there's a massive proliferation. And, we're starting to see a few in Hong Kong in the fintech side, but we're also starting to see, some detractors, especially within the corporate accelerators, that how much value does that really add to the fintechs? Does it really help them? I mean, obviously, we've got a group of people who are incredibly supportive of the accelerators. But, just from your side, Renu, I mean, you're actually running an accelerator here, SuperCharger, and, you've got the two groups. You've got the really early stage, you've got the growth stage. What kind of value are you really bringing to those companies? What are they getting out of it? Why is there so much interest?
Look, accelerators can do a number of great things. One is obviously the connectivity. You can connect into the right people in a very efficient manner, both from a mentoring perspective, from a potential customer perspective, and obviously from the financial perspective. Now, it's true, not every company needs to go in an accelerator to actually become very successful. But what a good accelerator can really do is make the companies very focused and very concentrated, intense experience, and say, what are you going to achieve in this 3 months? And what are the resources you need? Let us provide you with that, and then connect you and really accelerate your growth journey. I think the other thing that I think sometimes the detractors perhaps will miss is that not only is it the connections into the institutions and the mentoring, but it's also the learning experience that goes on from our late stage companies, learning and giving their experience and their challenges that they've faced to the early stage companies. And that's something no one can do from the outside. It's that journey from learning about what those late-stage entrepreneurs have actually faced themselves, and sharing that experience is extremely valuable. And I think the last thing that I would add to that, I mean, there are many other benefits as well, but another significant benefit is when you have an accelerator within a city, or particularly in Hong Kong, you actually build it impacts the bigger ecosystem, because not only you are concentrating these startups in one place, it brings early stage financing, seed and early equity stage financing to start looking at these companies. And that creates a spillover effect, because when those financiers or angel investors or early stage VCs come in, they will look not only at the companies in the accelerator, but we'll obviously look at companies outside. And I think that's an enormous benefit to the whole ecosystem beyond just what happens in the accelerator. And then, like I said, you attract overseas companies, corporates, so you build that entire system and provide jobs,
Cade, I mean, you're involved in a corporate accelerator, both here in Hong Kong and in Singapore. Now, what about the people who say these kind of things are more like a brand building exercise, or how much value are we really adding to the fintechs here? What is your view on that?
Well, the important thing is purpose and intent. So I can say from my perspective, because that was my intent when we started sponsoring Startup Bootcamp, and when we started to build an in-house accelerator called Hotspot. the intent was very clear. It was about building culture. My KPI was culture. How do I transform 22,000 employees into behaving more like a startup? So the intent was for them to have as much engagement and opportunities to collaborate with these people in order to learn from them. And on the other hand, we were really interested in helping some of our SME customers because we have a lot of them. So that was the reason why we did what we did. Now, I don't know why other people do it. And shortly after we had done ours, many other of our competitors in the local market also started building these programs, which isn't wrong. It's great. The more, the merrier. But I think the important thing, which I speak to some of even my competitor friends, we call them competitor friends because actually we're just all friends, right? That, it's no point copying. The important thing is to really know what problem it is that you want to solve and to make sure that you raise the right platform in order to do it.
Right. And just talking to quite a lot of the fintechs that we've seen that has gone through these different accelerators, I mean, I think it's an incredible value they're getting, a lot of them, because not only are they getting access to all these different kind of mentors and access to a potentially huge group of potential clients as well, but I think the actual cultural fit is also quite a good thing. I mean, fintechs, for all the agility and all this talk we're hearing about being innovative and things, they also need to understand that in order to sell to these large financial institutions, you've got to understand that they come from a different area, and you've got to be able to accommodate that in some way as well. Actually, so bringing on to more the regulatory side, which is always like a bit of a minefield, really. I mean, Hong Kong itself is moving into the sandboxes. Maaike, as someone who's incredibly involved in developing the fintech ecosystem here, what is your view on the sandboxes? Is it really useful? Is it something that's imperative to developing an ecosystem?
Yeah, thank you, Jayne, for that question. I just wanted to roll that into a comment about what Cade was mentioning. I think, yesterday a lot of people, or a few people actually mentioned that bankers had kind of turned into robots and that processes were all very simple and standardized. But I think over the years, actually banks have evolved a little bit. But what is probably still one of the biggest challenge, and has become a challenge over the last few years, is just the risk of failure. So people in banks have become so concerned about failing because it has regulatory consequences. And I think that is something that is a great thing for financial institutions to be able to learn off fintechs and startups as to how you remain agile and how you fail and how you do that quickly and how you get back up on your feet, because the regulations make it quite hard to fail. Now, I think that's where the sandboxes come in. So obviously you have the innovation labs, which are a great way to test and reiterate. And then obviously Hong Kong is like one big innovation lab, because there's such a great ecosystem where you can tap into and share your ideas and bounce off your ideas. But obviously the moment you really need to then engage with the Hong Kong consumers or the Hong Kong market or the global consumers, I guess it's important that you then respect a lot of the regulatory environment around there. And that's where the sandboxes come in handy. What I do think is that we, like the whole ecosystem, need to make sure that it remains inclusive, so that it's open to all, so that we don't shut the doors for certain parties, but that we make the sandboxes available for everyone.
Right, and that brings me to some of the other governments may not be as into the whole sandbox area, like Germany, for example, is saying that they would prefer any kind of fintech development to be involving everyone. Caroline, Visa, huge financial institution.
Technology company.
Technology company, my apologies. The sandbox. What is your view on that?
So I think it's a really good start for Hong Kong. I mean, they're obviously observing what's happening in other markets. My key comment on this is that, just to echo what Maaike has just said, is that we should be inclusive of all parties. It's not just financial institutions that have good ideas. There's many other outsiders that want to support our financial institutions. So, I mean, we obviously went through this same experience when we opened our developer centre to work out who could actually consume our APIs. Anyone can consume our APIs in the sandbox. Obviously, it's a different story when it comes to commercialising the APIs, but really you've got to actually give people an opportunity to have access and to have a go and experiment, and then make the assessment on the safety and security and efficiency measures that need to be put in place in order to commercialise whatever that solution is.
And what else is Visa doing in terms of just trying to get much more involved in playing a part in this ecosystem, this development of the fintech ecosystem?
So I think this is a regional conference, and I think it's probably worth mentioning that we've talked about innovation and incubation centres, but we launched last year our innovation centre in Hong Kong. It's really geared towards getting partners and third parties in and sharing with us and talking with us about how we can provide and add value through design thinking, very similar to what Maaike talked about. We don't have a specific Hong Kong, I guess, strategy, right? It's something that sits across the region. But of course, we need to be conscious in this market, like so many of our clients are really trying to push into China and also come out of China, that we are that landing pad. And it sometimes is very different to the stuff that we do in Singapore.
Right, so it's just basically adapting to the specific I suppose quirks and characteristics of those countries. I mean, we heard before from Minerva that it was, Asia is not one homogenous market. We all know this being in Asia, but it's just like, how different is it? Renu, do you have any comments?
I would like to echo this idea of being inclusive. I think it's even more important because it's a chance for the regulators themselves to actually, if they broaden the idea of what goes into the sandbox, to actually learn from some of the technology companies that actually may not be coming from the fintech sector itself, to see what those technologies are kind of capable of. I mean, to sort of draw a parallel, just like many of the financial institutions, when they do a proof of concept with a fintech company, is a chance for them to educate themselves as to what this technology might be able to do. In the same way that a sandbox, properly structured and inclusive, can actually be very useful for the regulators to understand what the technology may do. And secondly, then to figure out and perhaps get ahead of the curve and say, well, does our current regulatory environment allows this to happen, or how can we perhaps modify it? And also be able to then see not only how does this impact the customers, but whether this new technology may actually pose a systemic risk to the whole situation. So I think an inclusive sandbox is very important in order for the regulatory side of things, as well as from the technology companies themselves.
Yeah, and just being part of the Hong Kong government and a lot of close discussions with the regulators as well. It is, someone mentioned that Hong Kong is still quite early stage in terms of the fintech development. It is something that they're slowly getting their head around. Cade, in Singapore, I suppose the idea of fintech development has gone slightly further. I don't particularly want to just focus on comparing Hong Kong and Singapore by any stretch of the imagination, but I just think it would be fantastic just to share your experiences with some of the startups that have gone through Singapore, your accelerators and things, and how much help was that sandbox in validating their ideas, because you're working in isolation to an extent, and you need that real data to actually make things work.
I think that the sandbox does help, right, to solve some problems. But one of the key areas that I've noticed is that it's hard when it requires more than just one bank, right? So you need actually a whole consortium of groups, of various people to come together to make it happen and to make the data really worth your effort, right? So I think trying and experimentation through sandboxes have helped a lot of startups, and they've gained a lot of insight. But it's more, I think there's more that needs to be done. There is that huge amount of pushing that the Singapore government has been doing, and I think it's great because it's forcing everybody to, in some sense, collaborate and share. So so that's my view on the fact that it's important, and we need to continue pushing sandboxes to happen.
So, if we were to say we wanted to help the fintech ecosystems to develop further, in all these different countries, specifically in Hong Kong, Singapore. What would be the single biggest thing you think we can really try and collectively push to try and support that? Maaike, can I start with you?
Yeah, so the people that know me know that I'm passionate about two things. So one is technology and the other one is diversity and inclusion. And I think just taking it back to Hong Kong, I think we're at a unique intersection where we can actually work with a fantastic international crowd and bring them to Hong Kong, a job that you and Charles do fantastically well. And it's great to see so many international representation here as well, but also connect with our colleagues across the border in China. So we have such a fantastic opportunity, but it really means we need to be inclusive. And some feedback that I got this morning from a Chinese startup was very simple, to say, you know, my colleagues would probably love to come here, but it's all in English. So would it be possible to have some simultaneous translation into Mandarin, maybe? So I think that's just one example of how we can be a bit more inclusive. I think the other thing is the Hong Kong ecosystem is still very, very fragmented. I'd like to think that we are very much working in an ecosystem where sharing is really caring and we're all trying to work together. But the reality is that there are still a lot of silos out there, and I think we should try and bring that together, at least to operate as one voice. And I think to that extent, and Matt will talk about it a little bit later, I think it's really great that, you know, in the coming weeks we'll probably launch the Hong Kong FinTech Association here in Hong Kong, which will hopefully bring together the ecosystem even better and in such a way that we can actually then connect with each other and then going forward connect with other stakeholders, including the government and regulators, in a more efficient way.
Caroline, what would your wish list be?
So I think what Maaike's just covered as well, and full hats off to, you know, Maaike and her leadership with trying to establish a more coordinated association. I think the government's given us a really good framework. You heard Andrew yesterday talk a lot about some of the key achievements over the last year. It's really now for the industry to really take the bat and run with it. And so I think really for, you know, the call to action really to everyone is that we've just got to be involved. I mean, these things require effort and time. For some of us that work in corporates, you know, that's time out of our day. But if we really want to see, you know, a blooming fintech environment here in Hong Kong, we've really got to continue to talk about it and really invest the time. And the other thing I'll just say is the comment about the Chinese participation. I couldn't agree more, frankly speaking. I mean, we are effectively a special access region of China, and we should start to be a lot more involved and engaged with our Chinese colleagues, because there's a lot more that we can learn about what they're doing across the border.
Cade?
I think it's about talent and elevating talent, and at the same time it's also about giving people a compelling proposition as to why they need to solve problems together. So in every country, we've heard that in every region that there's fragmentation, not everyone wants to share. Sharing is caring, but the problem is people don't know why they need to share and why they need to care. So I think, you know, for, you know, whether it's an organization or it's the government, it's to really identify some of the key problems that they want to solve and that's worth solving, that requires everyone to do so. And I think if they tell that story and that proposition really clearly, then things will move a lot smoother.
Renu, do you have any thoughts on that one?
For one, I'd like to echo everybody out here. But let me add just one other thing. I think one of the things that people, from a very practical perspective, from the startup perspective in developing the ecosystem, I think we need a couple things, three people to come to the table. One, we do need our financial institutions to come and at least talk to the startups and understand what they're trying to do and see if there's in a way they can actually take on some of their technology. This is particularly important for Hong Kong, because Hong Kong, ultimately, we don't have it's not really a B2C market, it's very much a B2B market, and many of the solutions that are being developed, you know, do go into that B2B sector. So we do need our bigger institutions to come to the table. Secondly, we also need talent, and we need to find and encourage and develop talent, both from the university perspective, the undergraduates perspective. And I think that's really important because financial services has always been a big pillar of our economy, and in order to continue to have that growth, we need to attract this talent. We need for some of the tiger mums or mother-in-laws to say it's okay for my son to go and work at a startup, even if he fails. And lastly, we need the early stage funding, particularly again because we're a B2B market, and to build that kind of industrial level platform and have a 2 to 3 year time horizon before one of these platforms will get adopted by the larger institution, you need a lot more funding available. And so those would be my 3 practical things.
Rob, do we have a few more minutes for questions and stuff? I am cognizant of the fact that, it's lunchtime, we've run behind schedule. But before we actually do go into the questions, and it will just be 1 or 2 questions, I just wanted to invite our panellists, something someone doesn't know about you. Just one quick thing. Can we start with you, Caroline? Sorry. Come on, it's, fabulous panellists.
I'm married to a startup.
Right.
Thankfully, he's not in fintech. But my husband actually started a business last year, and it's really booming. And thanks to a lot of support for a number in the corporate industry here in Hong Kong. But yes, I am married to a startup, so I feel your pain every day.
Renu, come on, you can give us something someone doesn't know about you.
I love Latin dancing. I absolutely love it. And even though I'm all arms and legs, I still persevere.
Maaike, come on.
I participated in the Cross Harbour Swim last year, together with 2,500
Awesome.
other people, and very few Guaylo women, I can tell you. And I actually am very proud that I made it to the other side.
Cade.
I feel like I have to end well, so I hope you still keep me on the team after this. But I love vampires, so I want to be one when I grow up. And I just love watching vampire movies. I think that did it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to make any kind of references to that one. Anyone has any questions about, we've got some fantastic people here, very experienced on the corporate side, on the accelerator side. Would love to see whether you've got any questions that you're dying to ask. No one? Oh, there's one here.
Thank you for the discussion, very insightful. So my question is on a sandbox topic. So there are numbers of regulators who come out with a paper on the sandbox and how to regulate the sandbox. In your view, how to strike a balance between like the inclusive and the regulators who might want to be more selective on who to enter the sandbox?
Okay. Any one of our panelists want to take that one? Maaike, do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Quickly, because they're going to be throwing things at me.
Sorry. Yeah, so I think the solution there lies in just starting to be inclusive at the start. So we are normally not involved in the whole discussion around the sandboxes, so they just seem to miraculously pop up, which is a good thing. But instead of then negotiating how it can be inclusive once it's there, it would be great to kind of have discussions beforehand to talk about what would be the best way to set it up and make it as inclusive as possible for everyone.
Anyone wants to contribute further to that? Diversity in sandboxes. How do we make that more inclusive?
I think we have to talk about the sandboxes, make sure people are aware that they're actually out there and what they're trying to do. I think it's just, recently in Hong Kong, we've just announced it. I think people need to understand a little bit more about it.
Yeah, and I think actually having the FinTech Association would actually be fantastic to actually do the advocacy work. Actually, it's as a representative from the government, sometimes it is a slight disconnect between what people are doing and what the boundaries they feel that the regulators can actually develop. So it's something I think with the association it helps to add further voice to that.
Jayne, before we go,
Yeah.
is there something you would like to tell us about that we don't know?
About me?
Well
Oh
done,
gosh,
Renu.
I'm
Well
just-
done. Now you're on the spot.
My life is on Facebook. It's actually quite scary. My husband is just constantly posting things like that. Even I'm like, oh, do you really have to put that up there? But I am a kickboxer, and I've been doing kickboxing for about 15 years, and it's something I'm really passionate about. But
No wonder she's part of Invest Hong Kong. She's kicking their ass.
okay, well, on that note, thank you so much to my wonderful panelists. Can I have a big round of applause, please? Thank you.